Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com. We have a great show today, but before we get to that, I wanted to remind you of a few things. We have 2 great books on Amazon that will help you get the Big Four job that you deserve, and I've included links to those books in the show notes. Additionally, I wanted to remind everyone to make sure that they subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date on the latest Big Four news and career tips. Also, make sure to share the show with a friend if you get a chance. Lastly, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'll include links to all our social media in the show notes. Thanks and enjoy the show. Today I wanted to discuss a couple of news stories regarding Deloitte. First is an update on cyber attack on Deloitte from last week, and then we'll talk about a new application of the blockchain by Deloitte. Okay, first up, it seems that Deloitte's estimation that the hack didn't affect many of their clients could be wrong. Deloitte last week said that the hack wasn't that big and only a small amount of clients were impacted. But now it appears that isn't true and that there was a huge gaping hole in their security system. Now, as you might remember from last week, Deloitte had the cyber attack where they probably knew around the November 2016 timeframe that there were hackers that penetrated their system. But they've been investigating for 6 months and hadn't really told anybody. And then news came out from The Guardian that hackers have been in Deloitte systems and have hacked their email, have been in their email servers, and have access to sensitive information for over 6 months before it was found out. Now there's new evidence that shows that it's no surprise that Deloitte was infiltrated. And it appears to be all over the place from a security perspective. And last week, there seemed to be a collection of Deloitte's corporate VPN passwords, usernames, and operational details, and they were found on public-facing websites like GitHub. And what happened was it looks like a contractor just posted passwords up on there, copy and pasted for other people to get in. But these passwords have since been removed. In addition, it appears that a Deloitte employee uploaded company proxy login credentials to his public Google Plus page. And this information was up there for over 6 months. It was just removed last week. The Google Plus page appeared to show that the Deloitte employee was writing down his access controls on his personal Google Plus page. And this is a public page, so everybody on the internet could view it. So this is probably how the hackers got in, and Deloitte was sitting there wondering why this happened. Meanwhile, this guy was just copying and pasting his login credentials the whole time. And since Google Plus is part of Google, you could just easily use search facilities, and a hacker could easily find enough information to launch an easy attack. And you'd most likely be successful if these login credentials that this employee put up there were up to date. This is especially embarrassing for Deloitte since they go out there and they go to market and they market themselves as a top IT security consulting firm. And they obviously make millions and hundreds of millions from selling these tech services to others. And they say, it's very secure. We have this cyber intelligence platform and cybersecurity platform that's constantly monitoring for changes. Meanwhile, they got employees that are copy and pasting login credentials in the back end. They have their back door wide open. And also another thing that I saw up on the internet was that many of these security personnel and security contractors that Deloitte paid, they didn't like Deloitte. And Deloitte had a reputation for not paying the contractors very much and lowballing them on fees. And it's so funny because now these security these security contractors are making fun of Deloitte, saying, well, that's what they get for paying all their security contractors so little. It's like the old saying, get what you pay for. If you pay nothing, you're going to get nothing in return. And there's also an article from Wired Magazine about how they believe that there's no way that only a few clients could be impacted by this, like Deloitte estimated. Deloitte estimated there was about 6 clients, but they believe that the number of clients Deloitte estimated could be way more. And I'm almost positive that more news will come out about the number of clients impacted as Deloitte finishes their investigation, as the investigation is still ongoing. I'm sure in a month or two there will be a longer list of clients, or clients will come out, or lawsuits will come out, and the number will increase and probably be 10, 20, 30, who knows, 100 clients, because they had access to email and all of Deloitte's email servers. So I'm sure it's only a matter of time before, people hold data ransom or whatever things that these hackers like to do. And this also bears the question, should Deloitte take more responsibility and more liability on for this cyber attack, since it seems like they just left the back door wide open? Forbes discussed this in an article where they discussed the Deloitte breach and the Equifax breach. And they said that should executive immunity exist, or should it be removed for breaches like the Deloitte breach and the Equifax breach? Now, the Equifax breach was much worse because there appears to be some insider trading right before that breach was announced, whereas in the Deloitte case, they were just missing basic protections. But that's what executives are paid for. Executives are paid for making sure that your data is protected. The world is a technological age, and you can't just be an old school CEO and say, I don't know about technology, so it's not my responsibility that this happened. It is part of your responsibility to make sure that your firm is protected, and that also as a Big Four accountant and a CPA, it's important that you keep things confidential. The information, non-public information about public companies cannot be released. And there's other things you have to protect. But if you leave your back door wide open, you're not doing that. And as the CEO or the head of IT, there's various executives in Deloitte that should take responsibility, and money should be clawed back from them, or they should be fired. They should definitely be fired, but as far as executive compensation being taken away, something needs to be happen there, especially since there's insurance policies that cover this type of stuff. Okay, let's move on to the other news now. In the other news, Deloitte has implemented a new use for the blockchain out of their European blockchain lab. And you might say that Deloitte is taking non-financial applications of blockchain technology into uncharted waters. Why? Because Deloitte will be using blockchain to record the inspection certificates for ships, oil rigs, and the like on a private shared ledger. And their European blockchain lab did this by partnering with DNV GL. And this is one of the world's largest classification societies. Entities like DNV GL, they certify that vessels and oil rigs meet acceptable standards for safety and environmental impact. But the certificates for these inspections can be forged or potentially undermined by things like the hack that we just talked about. And also, checking that certificate is real and not forged can be slow and a long process. So Deloitte and the Norway-based DNV GL came up with a new implementation of blockchain technology as the answer to those problems. Now, the solution that both of these companies came up with creates a digital ID of each certificate that is stored and accessed on a private blockchain. And the decentralized approach is seen as a way to discourage fraud or otherwise tampering with the documents. So this is yet another application of the blockchain and investment in blockchain by the Big Four. And this just proves that blockchain is here to stay and that the Big Four are heavily invested in its applications. So it's important for you and your careers to learn more about it. We previously had a couple of podcasts on the blockchain and its applications. So I'll include links to those podcasts in the show notes if you're interested in learning more about the blockchain. I'll also include a link to our recommended books page where I have a link to a blockchain book that I recommend for everyone in the Big Four to read. That way you can learn more about the blockchain. So that's all we have for today. To stay up to date on all the Big Four news, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. We are a growing podcast and a growing business, and we appreciate your help in growing. So if you could share this podcast with a friend and give us a good review on iTunes, we'd really appreciate that, as it would help us grow and provide you with the best Big Four content and career tips. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day.